What's up, everybody? This is episode number 29 of Rolling with Reason. My name's Will Gerals. I talk about a lot of random stuff. I have maybe what would be called ADHD. I'm not too sure, but my brain is pretty much all over the place all the time. I guess kind of just for any new listeners or anybody who's touching back in, I'm not really sure what's happening with the setup of the podcast. I'm a very busy guy, and so what I mean by that is like I'm struggling to find my groove. Maybe this is just one of the consistencies of life is it's really hard to find your groove sometimes, but we'll get into that in a moment. But I'm kind of liking this idea right now, this journaling-esque type, just reflection on my week and what I got going on sort of thing, and then maybe touching on some of the stuff that I enjoy. I normally have a co-host, John, but like I said, like I've just been busy, and so I need to get a hold of John actually because I've just been so buried with the stuff that I'm doing that I kind of like forget that society exists. So I should definitely look into getting a hold of John. It's kind of important. But the podcast, if you guys are new here, like I said, it's usually a little different. But the last couple episodes have been solo episodes. But so normally I have a co-host. His name's John, and we just kind of orient ourselves around the stuff that we like. So we like talking about jiu-jitsu, and we like talking about philosophy, politics. Not to the degree that most people do, I would say for sure. It just happens to come up, I think, with societal constructs, but things of that nature. So if you're new here and you kind of like that stuff, welcome. Here you are. Here I am. Um, so with that being said, that's kind of like the light intro to what this is, and I don't know where things are currently at with solving the busyness problem, I suppose. I could definitely make the argument against myself that if I can sit down and set this up to shoot it, well, then I should have been able to get a hold of John. Extremely valid point to make against myself. I thought about that as I was setting this up, but nonetheless, we're going to get that sorted. So let's move on. This week has been a super busy week. I've been doing a lot of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu training, and I got some new moves, techniques that I want to talk about and go into, but we'll get into that into the later of the episode. I think towards the beginning of the episode, I'm just going to go ahead and offload and memory dump all of my Python stuff that I've kind of like experienced and went through this week because it was kind of it was a very interesting ride to say the least as far as the cognitive load went. And but with that being said, that we're also making tremendous strides in progress, and it feels really good. But almost too tremendous of strides, and we'll touch on to memory retention here within this kind of little segment or portion, if you will, here at the beginning. Yeah, Python is amazing. Python is an amazing programming language. If you guys don't know about it and you don't know anything about programming, I highly suggest that you just go ahead and use one of these AI tools and teach yourselves up. Go ahead and learn you a little something about Python. It might build you something and change your life. If not, that's okay. Just understand it's one of the more simple programming languages. It's one of those languages that we can use, and you're building something new, something you've never seen before. You can kind of figure it out, and so I think it's very, very good at that thing. And I think anytime we approach on new problems, sometimes we just have to remember, hey, this is just Python. Why do I bring that up? It's a great question. I bring that up because I'm using a framework called Django. For any of you who've been around for the last couple of weeks, you know that's the thing I've been kind of working on, the tool that I'm using, and that's so I can use and build Python to make web applications, to build web applications, and so something that I kind of worked on a lot this week was the organization and the constructing of information passing internally within the program, and so that's going really smooth. It's going really well, and I'm really happy with how that's turning out. And I think it's definitely going to be for the better. I actually got not deployed, so deployed means the website's up and running and people can actually get to it, click on it. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, but that's okay. We're like right around the corner, right around the cusp. But I started implementing some user authentication and restrictions uh, as far as like access goes, and just preventing malicious kind of attempts to access our websites and stuff. And so yeah, that's going good. And then I also found out about a couple third-party packages that helps the styling out tremendously, and so that's going really well. I'm also finding using some technologies that are out today to help with the whole customization of the front end to be extremely useful. But I think there's meticulous ways that you have to implement stuff like that, because otherwise it can be a little lackluster, I think. But yeah, so on that front, things are going really good. But there was about a midway point where I was like, okay, like I'm learning everything from what I'm reading, and in particular the book that I'm using, and so I thought to myself, well, I want to do something custom. I want to do something by myself. So let me just go ahead and make a couple small changes. And I realized I had a little bit of brain fog, like a veil, kind of in front of what I traditionally work on and use. And so what I mean by that is there's kind of like building blocks, a foundation that you use when you come back to portions of the book. And so I didn't go back to those portions. I've just implemented over them before, and I thought, well, I'm gonna do this little thing over here. It's a little custom, so it helps me with this. And then I quickly realized, oh, I'm kind of lacking in this area because I haven't done it in a minute. So I kind of had to reteach and rebuild up those foundational blocks to kind of understand and orient myself in the direction that I wanted to go. And so, with that being said, I did do that, and things have worked out great in that regard. And so, yeah, things are going smooth, and we're back on track. So that's really good. But it was tedious to say the least, and that kind of comes into the retention thing. If you don't use it, you lose it, and I definitely think that holds true. And I think building up that long-term memory without trying to reassociate with the documentation and or the books that you're using to implement correctly for long-term memory retention is critically important. And so even though I was able to find the answers and go back through and work through the problem, I would say strategically and effectively, I still think it's extremely important that you take the time to try and implement over that stuff without the material. And it can be a little frustrating or a little daunting, right? That you go to do that and you're like, like I know how to do this, but like it just feels a little foggy. I think that's a good sign that you're pushing your memory retention limits. Now, there's no science or anything behind me saying this. This is just kind of like a vague, like personal experience, science of your own body, since it's being thrown around all the time, by myself included. So I guess I just say like, that's a good sign that you're pushing your memory to its limits, and I think that's a good thing. Maybe to more specifically touch on the things that we worked on this week, because we were kind of like blowing through the reading material. It felt like so we implemented third-party applications into both the settings and also through the actual HTML documents, which is what you guys see on the website when you go to the website. And then we also implemented the styling from the CDNs, which stands for Content Delivery Network. And so over the CDN, there's kind of some validation and cross origin security things like SR1, which I can't remember exactly what that stands for. I believe it's like, yeah, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but nonetheless, it's kind of the way that we check like hashes between packages being delivered over the fiber, the cords, the wires across the world, right? Um, but yeah, so there's that stuff. I dive deep into that to kind of understand that more as far as the security aspects were concerned with the actual use of styling derived from other places, and so we were working down that path, and then we also moved down into CSS a little bit, and that was to kind of look at and understand more of what some of the things we were looking at. So HTML and well, just HTML in itself is its own programming language, right? Like back in the day, and even still some today, I'm sure. Websites are built using just HTML, and you guys can see those websites, but they may not be as flashy. So you use this thing called CSS, which is the styling that is used specifically for HTML. And so you have these things called rules that you can create and use these things called attributes on like all of your element tags or most of them, and one of them can be class, which is the way that you're styling something. But we also have these things called divs, which stands for divide, which is the way that we divide up the website into little blocks. And then we can assign a class attribute to those divs to be able to style them. What does that mean? Styling is a lot. There's a lot to styling, and I think I dove down into that a little bit so I could read it and understand it better to a degree that's extremely important, because when we're integrating the back end, which is like kind of like the data processing, which is the Python, uh, we need to know how to kind of navigate with our eyeballs those actual HTML code pages, because that's where we put the information in, and then ultimately that's going to be where we style it. So the way we set those up, and the way that we kind of conceptually understand that is critically important for moving at a more than pleasurable pace as far as like building this stuff, especially being somebody who's kind of just soloing it out here. But nonetheless, moving on, I think, like I said, I think things were going really good, but there was a moment there. There was kind of like a hesitation towards the end about the memory retention. I was getting like nervous and frustrated, and I kind of just had to get up and walk away. And in some cases, I even went to the jujitsu gym, or went to the weightlifting gym. So I thought that was really good and really needed. And so I'm really happy that I made it over that trial and what I would call a tribulation, because it was tough. It was a mental hurdle. It was probably one of the harder moments, I suppose, in my programming journey so far. And it's just kind of, I'm learning all these different things, and I'm using all these different concepts, and sometimes it's hard to kind of retain, or at least feel like you're retaining all of it. But that's where that long term kind of memory and thought comes into play, right? If you're taking the time to really try and rehone and sharpen that blade of the knowledge that you know that you have, and you come to those hurdles, and you make it over those hurdles, I think you're going to retain, and you're going to be better at that thing that you're doing for sure. And so I think, with that being said, like I'm really happy and pleased that we kind of made it over that hurdle, and we're progressing still at a very good rate nonetheless. And so moving on, the Gulag Archipelago. That was a book that I was reading a good amount, and I was trying to find what I could kind of talk about this week that I didn't necessarily talk about last week. But I wasn't reading as much because I'm focusing so much on jujitsu right now, and so that's really good. I think I attended somewhere along the lines of uh, 4 classes this week, which was really good. And then I actually also did weightlifting this week, 4 times out of this week. I've been strategically placing days now, though, so I can program and edit, video edit or whatever it be at a good clip. And so, at a pretty good clip. If you guys haven't heard that before, I heard that one time, and I'd never heard it before, and I was baffled. I didn't know what it meant. It turns out it just means moving at a pretty good pace. But yeah, we were moving at a pretty good pace with the programming stuff, and so we added in a couple days, and that's working out really well. But as far as the jujitsu goes, things are going really well, and I can't complain. We have been training up at a gym called Super System, and they're up in a city called Dublin, which is up more towards the center of Ohio. And this gym is just a phenomenal gym. Everybody that's in there is very technical, and I feel like what I would say is competition oriented, and it really just goes to show how important it is to be training with people that are just trying to be as technically accurate as possible, because it only makes you better. And so I have a tendency to be bigger as far as weight and body size is concerned. And so usually I play like extremely defensively and let people kind of attack me. And so I'm finding that, there's stuff that I thought maybe I was doing defensively right, but I would actually argue like against now, just for myself and kind of how my game and stuff is oriented. But that's okay. And it's great, because that's just another sign, it's another hurdle, right? It's one of those things where I don't get as frustrated though, because I just I don't know. I understand this kind of this kind of malleable state of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu where it feels like things are constantly changing and shifting maybe. And so yeah, I don't think I don't think I worry about that part as much. I just kind of enjoy like rolling with different body types and sizes and people who are extremely technical. And so that's been helping me a lot in that aspect. And so that's going really well and really smooth. And I've been implementing a lot of the Octopus 2.0 guard, which, for those of you that know, that's a Craig Jones thing. And so there was the first Octopus that he put out, and it was really good, and I really enjoyed it. But now in this case, we're looking specifically at the Octopus 2.0, and so there's just a couple little variations that I think are extremely well used and can be managed very well, but you kind of have to give up this side control position. And so there's definitely a way to go about navigating that. So I think, kind of tiring people out and letting them work really hard on their passing. And if that's something you do really well and then you like implement the Octopus 2.0 guard, I think it's extremely beneficial. But maybe I should kind of like not say that out loud, right? That kind of gives away some of the strategy. But yeah, so we've been working on that a good bit. I think there's a big portion there with kind of a connection between your knee and your elbow, wrapping around the back of their torso when they're in that side control position. But I guess that's more for the technical listeners who know anything about it and have been reviewing it. But all in all, I'd say it's really good. If you haven't been checking it out, definitely go check that out. That guard is very good. But yeah, moving on, there's some stuff that we've been working on also that we're just learning from the instructions that we're getting from Super Systems right now. And it's kind of like a hip clamp oriented passing, which is very nice, kind of capturing of the knees and rotating and switching their hips. So, for all of you that actually stuck around towards the later bit of this episode and are the Jiu-Jitsu fanatics, this could be a very crucial, very good passing style for a lot of people. If you can learn to use your hips and your legs to drive your pressure forward, almost in like a, if our opponent's head's facing this way, we're kind of driving towards their head. And so, but you kind of do it at an angle so you can force the hips to one side so we can capture the knee. And then once we capture the knee, we can rotate their hips back by applying that pressure back to the other side and capturing the other leg. I think in most cases you'll end up in mount, so it's a very good position to kind of like get a pass and also get the points for getting to mount. But it also puts you in a substantially good position for submission opportunities. And I think it's a very good pass. I don't know necessarily what I would call it, but I would say there's definitely a couple variants as far as for those of you that know, there's a thing called windshield wiper where you kind of like hook your leg over top of the opponent's leg and you kind of pull it out. So you can kind of do that little number to kind of clear the legs on the back end, or you can also do kind of this mule kick style, pull your leg out and trap the front of their shin, and you're driving pressure in there as well. But I definitely think it's a pass or something that I'm going to work on very diligently leading up to potentially the Arnolds. We haven't got around to looking at any of the IBJJF competitions yet for the month of February, which is really unfortunate. It's just that our ankle still, we're having some problems there. Now, we got x-rays and everything done, but we definitely still need to, I don't know, maybe go back and get it checked out again. The shoulder and some other stuff is doing pretty well though, and so I'm really happy about that. But I think one of the biggest undertones, I suppose, from this week so far for me is just like when you have those hurdles and you kind of have the stuff that uh, maybe put a little bit of self-doubt in your head. You just have to remember, what you're working on is the long-term retention for your memory. And if you're running into problems with the retention for the things that you care about the most, I think it's probably just a good sign that you're really just pushing your memory limits, your memory retention limits, and your knowledge to the degree that you should be, and that's a good thing. We shouldn't use that, and we shouldn't feel like instantly discouraged. Maybe just understand, take a moment, finish out the day, or take a break and come back to whatever it is, and I'm sure everything will be fine. And if it isn't, just go back over the material. That way, when you come back to it again, you're just in the state where you can just recall it faster. And and for everybody, that's a different kind of thing, right? Sometimes that stuff just sticks, and then sometimes it doesn't. And nonetheless, just taking the time and I think approaching it with the right kind of mindset is going to be what helps us retain that stuff even longer. But I would say all in all, it was a good week, and I was happy with this week. We've been pretty slow at work though still, so that's been a little bit of a mental barrier, but it's been letting me progress in other ways that were kind of unexpected. So I'm really happy about that. But I know this episode is going to be a little bit shorter. I suppose it's just because I did a lot of computer stuff, and I don't know. I guess maybe one thing I could touch up on before I close it out is kind of nutrition and stuff. I've been working really diligently about assessing my nutrition, especially leading up to potentially competing here within a month or less, especially if we compete at the end of November. So I've been very diligent about counting the calories up. I've been looking at the supplements we're using and just making sure that we're applying, not applying, but I suppose using them at the right time, staying hydrated, making sure we're replenishing electrolytes if we're losing them a lot during training, right? I mean, realistically, right, I trained 4 times this week, but with a lift on every day except for one would put us at like 7 hard training-esque type sessions. And so making sure that we're restoring our electrolytes and getting the protein within time. And then I'd also say for joints and stuff, omega-3s, right? You're supposed to have 2 servings of omega-3s every week. Magnesium's been a big one. That's been for more sleep nonetheless, though. Anybody who tuned into last week would know kind of where I was at with the sleep and everything. So that's been going well as well. But yeah, other than that, I don't have too much. So, if you guys tuned into this episode or have questions about the stuff that I'm talking about, or you just feel like chatting because you want to chat, leave a comment down in the comments section. I usually leave some polls as well. So if you guys are interested in answering those goofy questions that I ask, please do. That would be really cool. But other than that, thank you guys so much for listening. If you tuned in, if you guys are new, make sure you do the stuff that you need to do to listen more to know when we release. I don't know what that is because I do so much. All right, thanks everybody. Peace.